Welcome to the 2024 Condo Update from Condo Analytics. My name is Nick DeSantis. I will be your tour guide today. We also have Dalton Skinner on the call who's going to walk you through a whole bunch of stuff. We got a material-packed presentation, despite the fact that there haven't been a tremendous amount of updates from Fannie and Freddie this year. There has been a lot going on in the condo world that y'all need to know about. So I want to thank you all for joining. We'll make the most of your time here. Hopefully you'll learn something. I do want to say, if you do have questions, please follow up with me. We'll be happy to answer any questions about any of this. I don't really want to do it here on this webinar just because I can't really see the questions while I'm doing this. So send us a question, info@condoanalytics.com. We'll be happy to answer anything that you have. I also will be sending out a copy of the slide deck along with a link to this webinar. This is recording right now, so note that. I'll send that out to everyone that registered for this. So yes, the slides will be sent, and all this information, there's sources and links to stuff that we're going to talk about that you can click on those and take it from there. So that being said, let's get this kicked off. Few things that we're talking about today. Major updates. Like I said, Fannie and Freddie, not a ton from them. Freddie had CPA go live. We have some thoughts on that. We'll talk about that a little bit. Fannie Mae, the replacement costs and co-insurance update. Dalton's going to walk you through that, what it means for you and what you need to be looking for. And then the main topic that I'm going to be covering is the new Florida Reserve Study Requirement Law. We're going to be talking about the law today, people. So that being said, let's talk about it. Florida Senate Bill 154. So this was passed last year, and there was an initial bill that they modified, passed in 2022. Anyway, this was passed, and there have been some rumors that it might get delayed when it goes into effect. I would not count on that. I reached out to a friend of mine who's a CMB, who's very active in Florida advocacy for the Florida MBA. There's whispers of it. Don't count on it happening. There's a very remote chance that this gets delayed. So what does this mean? Basically, at the end of the year, this year, every condo project in Florida that is 3 stories or more that has been in existence since July 1st, 2022, which is most of them, needs to have a structural integrity reserve study performed on the project. Not only that, they need to have allocations in their budget for funding for all of the structural items notated in the SIRS. We'll call it a SIRS. So far as non-structural issues that they cover in the structural integrity reserve study, those don't have to be allocated for, but anything that's structural needs to be funded. So what does this mean? What is structural? The roof, obviously. If you have a faulty roof and you have weather intrusion, that can lead to all sorts of problems with everything from the foundation to the walls. Anything that affects the safety and security and soundness of the building is probably going to be structural. But yeah, any load-bearing walls, obviously, fireproofing, plumbing, electrical systems. We have a lot of condo projects in Florida that are 30 plus years old. They need to have the electrical systems looked at, and they need to do it before December 31st. So this is not a Fannie Mae requirement. This is a state level law that is going into effect. But by nature, if you are not in compliance with jurisdictional requirements as a condo project, you are automatically ineligible for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. It is a deal breaker if they don't do this. So that's something that we're going to be looking for. I know that there's a ton of our clients on this call. There's probably a lot of people that aren't working with us, but this is coming. And because of that, you're going to start to see people performing reserve studies in Florida more frequently when you're doing Florida loans. We have a lot of clients that aren't based out of Florida, but they've got people in Minnesota who want a condo in Florida, and they write the loan for them because they're their hometown lender. You need to pay attention to this stuff because it doesn't really matter where you are. This affects Florida specifically. And yeah, I mean, this is the structural stuff. I'm not going to read you the slide in front of me, but it's all here. I'll send this to everybody. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, it means a lot of things. Obviously, these are going to start coming up more and more frequently, and we are required to review any structural integrity reserve study that has been performed within the past 3 years per Fannie and Freddie. So these are going to start happening. We're going to have to start looking at them. And then the real kicker is having a fully funded reserve account to pay for this stuff in all of the budgets next year. That's going to be kind of chaotic probably for a little while, but we'll get through it. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. Recently, I'm from New York originally. In Manhattan, I'm not from Manhattan, but in Manhattan, a brick fell off a building and it killed somebody, and it was tragic. And the city of Manhattan said, okay, everyone needs to have their building facades inspected to make sure there's no loose bricks. So right now, literally every single building is getting inspected, and then a lot of them do have issues, and they're having to put scaffolding up all over all of New York City to deal with this. It costs a ton of money, and it's happening right now if you look at the skyline of New York City. So this is not unprecedented, and it's not the end of the world, but this is something that is totally going to affect your condo loans in Florida. So just note that. Yeah, like I said, non-compliance with jurisdictional requirements, automatically ineligible. That's pretty self-explanatory. What does this mean for condo owners? Yeah, special assessments, a lot of special assessments. That's going to be pretty painful for them. It's not a great time to be a condo owner in Florida right now. I'm sure some of you on this call probably are. You should be figuring out where your HOA is at. So far as, have they done this yet? Are you guys funded? But yeah, if you look at some of these articles, like this Orlando condo residence, I've got links to this down here. You can read these after, but this one down below, we actually, Condo Analytics, we reviewed this project for one of our clients, and we denied it based off the fact that they refused to answer any questions or provide us with any documentation because they knew they had a lot of problems, but we can't make an informed opinion if people aren't willing to play ball. We denied this in January of last year. This article is from May of this year. Basically, what that article goes on to say is like, every unit owner is getting a $20,000 special assessment. It's not a luxury condo. That's a lot of money to a lot of these people. They're all like $300,000 units, and their HOA dues are going from $400 to $1,400 a month. So that's a pretty bitter pill to swallow if you're an owner there, and not everybody has the money to pay for that. Obviously, people move to Florida to retire, and they're on a fixed income. They're on pension and Social Security or whatever. They can't really stomach these kinds of increases in costs. And even if they have the condo paid off in full, so these still apply, right? So anyway, I encourage you to go and read these just to get an idea of sort of what is happening. But what does this mean? Yeah, it's going to be really hard to sell these projects. If you have one of these, I mean, conventional financing might be very difficult to get. That's all we do here at Condo Analytics is review projects to determine if they're eligible for conventional financing. And this sort of stuff, we've seen a lot of people just kicking the can down the road for the next owner for the past few decades down in Florida and everywhere. Because if you think about it, like, okay, I have an option to vote in whether or not to pay an additional $200 into my HOA every month. What is your natural reaction to that going to be? No, I want that for me. Somebody else can pay for that later. I don't want to pay more every month. That's like, I think that's a very human sort of response to, hey, just give me more money from the HOA. But push has finally come to shove, and there's going to be some people stuck holding the bag here. So anyway, this is not supposed to be to like scare people or anything, but this is a very real thing that's happening in Florida right now. So just pay attention to it. This is coming, and it's already kind of here. But yeah, what does this mean for you as a lender? Well, I think there's some opportunities for you. How are people going to pay for this if they get hit with a $50,000, $100,000? This second article on the top left, $100,000 plus assessment. That's crazy. How are people going to pay for that? Well, hopefully they bought these not at all-time highs with 3% down, and they have some equity in it. This is a great opportunity for you as a lender to maybe offer them a HELOC and help them fund these special assessments with a HELOC. They might have a ton of equity. That's one way for them to keep their unit and not, get foreclosed upon. So there's some opportunity there. You might want to have somebody on your side go through and look at all the condo loans that your organization has done over the past 10 years in Florida and reach out to those borrowers. They already know you, and that could be an opportunity for you to get that HELOC. So I don't know, something to think about, but there is opportunity for lenders here. And then we'll see how this all shakes out. I really don't know. I do think some projects are going to just get foreclosed upon. I think some will get bought out, and there'll just be a full-on buyout by some big company that comes in and tears down, just starts over, ones that are in really bad shape. But as you can probably tell, I don't know, I'm kind of jaded after living in this condo world for a long time. We do see a lot of crazy stuff at these condos, and Dalton can tell you much better than I can, but we see all different shapes and sizes of HOAs. Some of them are run by volunteers, and it's just a 20-unit project. Some of them are professionally managed by property managers that manage hundreds of projects. An HOA comes in many different shapes and sizes. Some are better than others, and I'm sure all of you already know that. That's why you're on this call, because you do condo loans, and yeah. But that's pretty much it on the SIR stuff. I'm happy to talk more about that if anyone wants to call me. I'm always happy to talk about anything. Dalton, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about CPA.
Alrighty, thank you, Nick. We'll step away from the doom and gloom for a second here and discuss Freddie Mac. I'm sure everyone's probably heard about Condo Project Advisor at this point. Recently, actually brought online here. I just want to give you guys a little bit of information just regarding kind of the process if you were a little unsure about how it's actually utilized and things of that nature. So, as I'm sure you're aware, similar to CPM on the Fannie Mae side, but not serving quite the same function. CPM, they're both repositories for, condo review results in essence. However, CPM is a little more manual, as the lender investor, you're going to be entering that information directly into the system. You're going to get feedback on it being certified or what may be missing, things like that. So pretty hands-on, pretty quick to get a result. CPA, in contrast here, is more so done by Freddie Mac directly. So two ways it kind of works. You basically have, if you are a group that doesn't have a condo review department or a service such as ours handling your project reviews, you have the option to package up condo documents and submit them to Freddie Mac directly. That would work kind of similar to a HUD approval or something of that nature, where basically you're submitting this package. They get to it when they get to it. I believe Nick and I sat in their webinar recently regarding this. They stated that 2 weeks at least is the turn time. So I would, go ahead and assume if you were to utilize this function of it, 2 weeks to a month, if they review it, have conditions to come back for, another 2 weeks to a month to review those, I would assume, as is pretty standard with processes like that. So not necessarily the most efficient way of, completing a project review, of course, but it is an option if you're in a dire circumstance where, maybe you only get a couple in and you want to go that route for whatever reason. So that's kind of one function of it. Additional function of it, Freddie Mac, again, they're doing all the reviews themselves, is basically pulling almost all project reviews from the past, say a couple years at least, and reviewing them so that they can add this information to CPA. Because it generates a finding on LP. When you run LP, it'll give you kind of a determination of, I guess just in short, caution, eligible or ineligible. Worth noting, unlike CPM, where CPM, if you do have one that's CPM unavailable already, been deemed ineligible by Fannie, you have to submit basically a case back to them to have it potentially updated or overturned. Freddie Mac will do that more on the fly. If you do submit one that maybe had an issue in the past and they see your submission, closed loan, say, and they see your submission, audit it, and they see that that's been fixed, they will update that status. That's what we've been told. So a little more malleable than the CPM process. But again, they're pretty much reviewing everything so that they can get it into the LP findings so that it can assist lenders with kind of having a front end idea of, hey, we need to check on this, or wow, this was, this doesn't seem to have any issues. We likely will be okay with this, barring any things like, a litigation or something like that. So useful in that aspect. Again, the actual review aspect of it, this review submission aspect, a little bit, we haven't heard too much good feedback on that. But certainly the findings on LP. But want to give a word of caution that, when you are submitting to Freddie Mac, when you're closing loans with Freddie Mac, they are going to be going through these with a fine-tooth comb. So definitely be submitting the information as clearly as possible. When this kind of process started, we actually had some Freddie Mac come back about some past reviews that the information was there, but it just wasn't, at times of closing loans when you maybe have something in an email or clarification here that isn't exactly on the questionnaire, something of that nature, they're going to flag all of that, and you're just going to have to provide that clarification. So you may see some of that going down the line here where you're like, well, we verified this. What's the problem? And it just wasn't, 100% clear to them. So just be prepared for that. Like I said, we've run into that a couple of times where we've had to resend some information, stuff like that. So just know that, if you are closing, condo loans with them, they are going to be auditing these. And, if the information isn't 100% clear in front of them they're going to come back and cause you a little bit of a time waste there, in essence, to resubmit that information. So Nick, feel free to go ahead to the next slide. That's about all I've got for CPA. All righty. The dreaded deferred maintenance critical repair slides. These should all be pretty familiar to us at this point. Wanted to just kind of present them again, just to reiterate some of the points, as we constantly receive questions about these items still, and which I understand. You want to close these loans, and you want to kind of try to fight back on some of these findings. However, just wanted to represent it, go over a couple of things here. So, as we know, obviously, any structural issues, anything at all, when we have an inspection done, not necessarily a reserve study, that's a little more open to interpretation. But at this point, our findings have been, whenever we have an inspection within 3 years, as is required to provide when that's been the case, if you have recommended repairs on that inspection, Fannie and Freddie are going to want to see them done, even if they seem like, there's some that are obviously very minor that we can work around. But if you're on the fence about whether it's minor or a critical repair and it's on an inspection report, you have to have it done. That's basically the environment we're in right now. If you have an inspection, it's got repair recommendations, need to get them done. And then as we just go through, we receive some feedback, occasionally that says, well, this isn't structural. And I think a lot of people are latching on to this structural finding. A structural repair, while obviously is the most extreme and necessary repair and eligibility factor, there are a lot of repairs that aren't necessarily structural that are still critical in nature to the function and condition of the project. But as it says here, the big thing is material deficiencies. If you have something that could result in further issues and expenses within a year, then you need to have that fixed. The big thing they're looking for here is that maintenance is not going to affect the marketability or financial stability of the project as well. So we have to consider that as well. Of course, mold, water intrusions, any potentially damaging leaks, absolutely have to be fixed. Advanced physical deterioration, like I said, if things are starting to wear and they're not being addressed, we have to look at it from the financial perspective of the project. We don't want these borrowers, these unit owners, to face these massive special assessments down the line just because the project isn't being, efficient and on top of this maintenance. We see projects sometimes that have $3 million in reserves and haven't done a repair in 2 years. You know what I mean? So it does come down to sometimes a management aspect. But obviously, kind of going back to the Florida thing, the new law there, the local kind of jurisdictional requirements are going to come into play here quite a bit. We see this a lot. Florida is obviously the big culprit here. We see it a lot with the 40-year research, this reserve study requirement, things like that. So very important that we keep getting these addendums completed that are answering this question so that we can verify there's nothing out of code and things of that nature. Last bullet point, want to go over it. We don't really see this a lot, to be quite honest. But yes, if you do have, say, you get an inspection that has, repairs listed out, replacement costs of these needed repairs, things like that, and the HOA say has, no money in reserves, basically, they haven't done a special assessment yet, and the total repair cost is over $10,000 per unit broken out like that, that's going to be an issue as well. So we have to keep track of that as well. So again, more so something you'd find as a result of an inspection or a reserve study requiring repairs and those costs, but not something we see often. But we wanted to mention it just as a refresher as we get kind of halfway through the year here. So Nick, feel free to go to the next slide, please. Alrighty, and yeah, and just wanted to drop this in as well. Routine repairs, of course. This is where it becomes the big separation in remaining useful life and material failure. So a roof is a perfect example. So, roofs are expensive. We see a lot of reserve studies where they have, hundreds of thousands of dollars in, roof replacements, things like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a critical repair. A project may have, and we always ask, PMs or HOAs this question to basically separate it out here. So, if you have a roof, you have $200,000 in to replace it this year. Is it being replaced because it's 20 years old and, heck, we just need to replace it. It's old. It's, the remaining useful life stuff. We'd like to keep the project, refreshed and get this roof replaced so we don't have any issues. That's perfectly acceptable. That's routine maintenance. We're not going to knock an HOA or a project for doing the necessary maintenance to keep up the project, even though it may be expensive. However, if you have $200K in roof replacements because the shingles are missing, it wasn't installed properly, there's water intrusions, that's a critical repair. That's not preventative remaining useful life maintenance. That's critical maintenance now, so we don't have further issues, down the line here, whether it be structural, financial, things of that nature. And typically you'll see those accomplished within the operating budget. When we're looking at projects to verify, if they do have any critical repairs or critical deferred maintenance, the budget's one of the first places we'll go. We'll look at the expenditures for the year, see if they have a $150,000 boiler replacement or something of that nature. So you'll want to see if they just have just your routine repairs listed there, that's fine. We're not going to knock them. That wouldn't be considered critical, deferred maintenance, things like that. So just wanted to kind of clarify a little bit, how we're looking at that, how Fannie and Freddie are looking at that. And usually it's pretty clear kind of what the actual condition of the finding is. So Nick, and I guess I'll touch on really quick as well. If you have had an evacuation order at any point in time, this is part of the addendum as well that you guys have probably seen plenty at this point. You do need to make sure that that the building is suitable for occupancy. Again, everyone's actually moved back in, things like that. So something to keep an eye out for if you do see that on an addendum. Make sure that everyone is actually back into the project, that there's nothing, remaining and that occupancy is back to normal. So Nick, go ahead and go to the next one. All right. One more here for you. Special assessments. I know we've seen a ton of these, or we certainly have on our end. Basically, just a reminder, the big things we're looking for here when you've got a special assessment. What is it tied to? If tied to repairs, what is the scope of the work? What is the actual assessment amount? If the assessment payments exceed 10 months, they have to be considered in the DTI during underwriting there. So Worth noting that. So you always want to verify the actual payment schedule there. And then additionally, for all review types, you'll need to verify how many unit owners, if any, are greater than 60 days delinquent on the special assessment payments. So pretty standard, list. We send that to all PMs, HOAs, whenever we do have a special assessment, just that bullet point list of, what's it for? If for repairs, what's the scope of the work? What's the status of it? Delinquencies. Always got to have that stuff. Now, there are cases, of course, not every special assessment's a problem. We see it a lot, with insurance premiums going up so much, for instance, where people are special assessing for, insurance increases, which is acceptable. Again, we still have to verify the delinquencies, and we still need to verify the payment schedule just to make sure it does need to be included in DTI and things like that. But those aren't necessarily killers. But obviously, special assessment for balcony repairs, things like that. Again, if you have to question whether it's critical or routine maintenance and it's tied to a special assessment, you need to typically lean towards the side of this needs to be done, because again, that's how, in our experience, since all of these guidelines have been in place now for over a year, that's how auditors and things like that are going to look at it, is that it might be the luck of the draw on who you get that day. Looking at your information, they could deem it as a critical repair, and then you don't have the supporting evidence to clear it up. So again, always want to get that kind of bullet point list of information just so you have a leg to stand on there at the special assessments, because we're going to be seeing this for years to come now, especially with all the kind of the newer requirements and things. Special assessments aren't going anywhere, so I want to make sure we're handling them properly. But and one more note on this. You probably noticed on the 1076 addendum or any other applicable questionnaire, there's a section outlining, are there any planned special assessments? While a planned special assessment, we're not worried about the actual payment because that could change and when it's actually announced. But we're worried about what it's actually tied to. Again, if it's tied to a repair critical in nature, we have to treat it like like an active special assessment. That work has to be done before we clear the file here. So same thing. The only thing we're not worried about with a planned or future special assessment is what the actual payment amount is, but the actual use of the assessment is 100% applicable and needing to be verified. So Nick, feel free to go to the next one, please. Alrighty, replacement cost, co-insurance. You may have seen this kicked around a little bit recently. I won't go over the co-insurance requirements in the past because they're not applicable anymore. But in the past, when reviewing a master insurance policy for a project, if the policy included co-insurance, there was a list of items we'd have to go back to verify, which in truth did kind of, gum up the process a little bit, especially in places like Florida, where a lot of times they won't give you the, actual appraised value of the project, things like that. So you kind of run into a wall, and it was causing issues where, we couldn't finish reviews, or anyone really couldn't finish reviews because they couldn't get this information without going to a certain resource to get it. And it just became, a big back and forth. So as a result, let me pull this one up. I'm going to read a little bit off of the actual release. We have the release linked in on the slide here, so you'll be able to go to references if you haven't seen it already. But basically, Fannie and Freddie have aligned clarifying property insurance requirements related to replacement cost and co-insurance. Really, for the replacement cost, the name of the game now is 100% replacement cost. There's really nothing else to it. They've updated some of the references to replacement cost in the guidelines to try to make it a little more clear. But basically, when you have co-insurance now, you need to verify 100% replacement cost. And this can be done through, and Fannie Mae will actually list out some different options, but this could be done with an estimator, cost estimator, or value estimator. It could be done by just the insurance provider verifying it for you. That's typically the route we go. Again, in the past, you had to kind of go and get, actual appraisal value, things like that wasn't always available to us. Now they're telling us, we've waived these requirements to streamline the property insurance review process and ensure that everyone just has sufficient coverage, basically. So, like I said, name of the game, 100% replacement cost. Need to be verifying that. really in all instances now at this point. So when you are working with an insurance provider, gathering this information, that's something that no matter what, we need to know 100% replacement costs. So again, the bulletin is actually linked there if you'd like to go and read further. But I feel that's really the extent of kind of what we need to go over here. 100% replacement cost, you're good to go. And Nick, feel free to switch to the next one for me. All right, just a couple wrap up thoughts from me, and Nick will kind of take it back over here. Want to start with saying, obviously, always important to manage borrower expectations. In a perfect world, we would have these, from our perspective, obviously from an actual, condo review perspective, we would get this information for an HOA or a PM. We'd order it that day. We'd have everything the next day, and we'd be done with it. That's the world I'd love to live in. But unfortunately, you're dealing with, property managers, that manage, multiple projects, HOAs that are run by volunteers, things like that. There is sometimes a delay in getting this information. And again, some properties or projects, especially when you have someone that's a self-managed project or something like that, they're not always thinking about, Fannie Freddie guidance. So, we'll get a whole package from, a property or project rather, and they don't have half of what we need, and they're like, well, we've never known we've needed this. So there are some speed bumps potentially in the process. Sometimes it's not always a quick turnaround. These condo reviews are not a simple process like they were a couple of years ago. I remember underwriting years ago, and it being a very simple, very quick process in most cases, and that's really not the case anymore. We have to get a lot of information. We have to sometimes do a lot of digging into these projects. So just a note to, maybe just mention that, on the front end to your borrower, hey, in a perfect world, we'll get this done. They'll send us everything we need. We'll have this done in a couple of days, ready to go. But, there may be a case where they're, involved in litigation, or they haven't approved a budget, or they have to vote, they're voting on this special assessment, or they have to get their insurance adjusted. There's a lot of different irons in the fire that we may have to address throughout the process. So just kind of wanted to mention that just as a reminder, and something we run into, quite frequently when trying to gather this information. Again, CPM versus CPA, different functions. Both of them certainly have their own value, but the big thing we want to kind of just reiterate is make sure that you're gathering and presenting all information needed for approval as clearly as possible, just so you can avoid having to go back and rehash certain things that may have been verified in email or something like that. Make sure everything you have for that review gets sent so that you can, that you have a leg to stand on whenever any questions come back, as auditors might be looking at something from, 2 or 3 years ago, and they might not have the most updated info. So just a reminder, be diligent there, send as much clear info as possible, and be proactive. This is something we try to tell everyone that we speak to about this. When you get a loan in the door, customer in the door, wanting to get going on this unit and everything, try to engage the seller side. Most often they're able to access this information quicker than anyone else. I would engage the seller side, the realtor, whoever, and try to get some information on the front end. Who's the best contact for this? Maybe they can go ahead and reach out and say, hey, Condo Analytics is going to be reaching out. I'm trying to sell this unit, blah, blah, blah. And just get some information on the front end. If you have a good contact, you might be able to get the seller to, or you might be able to get directly from the HOA, hey, can you guys go ahead and give me some of this addendum information? Have you had an inspection, special assessments, anything like that, give you an idea on the front end, because those are most oftentimes what holds up a file as we start to get more information, questionnaire, stuff like that. Oh, well, they have had an inspection for the past 3 years. They didn't send it to us. We have to go back for that. Or, hey, they have a special assessment for balcony repairs. We don't need to touch this one, So just kind of a note, if possible, I understand it's not always possible, but if possible, try to be proactive, engage the HOA on the front end, engage the seller side on the front end to try to get you some info, speed up the process, or just give you some info that might determine whether you proceed with it at that point. But of course, that's why, services like ours exist. We're happy to to do all the digging for you and things like that. So, but just a note. And as a result of that bullet point there, we've actually launched an additional service that we think might be helpful to some in certain areas. So, Nick, I'm actually going to turn it over back to you and let you go on the HOA healthcare announcement.
Excellent. Wow. Thank you, Dalton. Yeah, we have a new product for, well, not really for y'all, but for HOAs. So something that we found is that HOAs find out about a lot of their deficiencies and problems and deal breakers through us. And that's always unfortunate when one of our clients is trying to get a deal done and we don't have enough going to reserves, or we don't have enough insurance, or whatever the case may be. There's all sorts of things that can kill a deal. So we have launched a proactive service called HOA Healthcare, where we will partner directly with the HOAs or property management companies to review their projects and give them basically a full review of everything that they have, as if it were a pending loan that we're working on. And we can tell them what they need to do to bring their project up to snuff so that they can maintain conventional financing for all of their owners. So if you live in an HOA, or if you have a ton of HOAs around you, that might be a great service for them, just so they can, if they haven't had a transaction with conventional financing in a little while and they're not sure if the litigation that's currently ongoing is a deal breaker, or whatever the case may be, we can come in and have a full review of the project, but also, it's not going to get input into CPM, because this is strictly for them to make decisions off of internally. They're not going to wind up on the unavailable list. They can just figure out what's wrong with them before, they end up on the unavailable list. So that is available if you guys know anyone. I know this isn't really the audience for that kind of thing, but it is something that we're offering. If you do live in a HOA and you want to know what's going on, we can go and review it for you. So, well, Dalton, that was excellent. I feel bad. I forgot to introduce you. Dalton is the head of Condo Analytics over here. He does a lot of the condo project reviews. He's in charge of the condo project review team. So I would challenge you. I don't think that you'll find somebody in this business that knows more about this than him. And if I was running a mortgage company, I would be sending 100% of my condo loans to him to review, because this is literally all he does. So now comes my bit about who we are as a company. I know we have a ton of clients on this call. Y'all, you have probably already heard this. You're probably well familiar of what we do over here. If you want to stay on, feel free to hang around. If you want to see how we can help you, please hang on the line. This is all we do over here. We do condo project reviews as a service for lenders. So if you have condo business and it's slowing you down, send it to us. Let us take care of it. We'll deliver it back to you with a complete package on a nice platter that you can deliver to your investor or directly to Fannie and Freddie. It takes the entire condo headache off of your plate, and it reduces risk for you tremendously, just because you have somebody like Dalton going through and making sure that it actually does meet Fannie, Freddie, FHA guidelines. But it also just, it frees you up so that you don't have to think about the whole condo piece as much, and you know that you're going to have a eligible or ineligible project. So, yeah, there's a bunch of marketing jargon in here. No setup fees. I can get you set up tomorrow if you want. It's a transactional service. There's no minimum. So, yeah, I'll show you some snapshots of what the system looks like. We try to keep it as straightforward as possible. It does not really, sorry, people keep hopping in. It doesn't look very sophisticated, but it actually is. We have Fannie and Freddie's guidelines built into our system. So you log in, you submit a new order. We need a few key details from you. We need to know things like the loan to value, loan amount, the unit address, obviously. But just a few key details, and we can take that and run with it. Now, what's really nice about working with us is you can do document provided orders, where if you do have capacity to go out and get this stuff and you know where to go to get it, you can go get it yourself, send it to us, we'll review it, certify it, kick it back to you. We can do those 24 to 48 hours. Those are easy for us. Those are called docs provided orders. We obviously charge less for them because we don't have to go get the documents, which, as all of you know, is most of the battle. Right? Dealing with HOAs and property managers, it's not easy getting documents out of these people, But anyway, that's one way to save money, is just let your people get the docs. We'll certify it. Anyway, you're going to put, some key details, loan purpose. These things kind of dictate what type of review we're performing. If you put in certain characteristics and you ask for a limited review, it'll automatically correct it when we set up the order to a full review. So you're never getting the wrong review type, depending on the loan characteristics that you input. So there's not a ton to say about it. This is the first of, I think, 7 pages of our review form. It's got all the information that you're going to need to put into CPM. And yeah, everything that you need. And we'll tell you if it's eligible. If it's not, here in the comments section, we'll tell you why it's not eligible. And we'll go through the whole file and tell you all of the reasons it's not eligible, because you might have a non-QM investor that doesn't care that it's a condo tel, or they don't care that they don't have exactly what Fannie wants for insurance. They've got a little bit of a bigger box, and you can get it through with some other investor that has an appetite for that. There are people that do. Let me know if you need a reference. But our review form, if you look through it, and if you want to see some samples of this, shoot me an email after. I'll send you what this whole document looks like. This is just some snips. You'll notice that it looks very similar to CPM. That's because it is basically built off of the questions that go into CPM. So everything that you're going to need when your employees are inputting these loans into CPM is going to be in here. And then all of the documents and printouts of email conversations that clarify things, certify that work is complete, all that sort of stuff comes in the package when we release the file back to you. So it really takes a lot off your plate and covers all your bases. So you don't need to fret about this stuff and be like, oh, did I remember to get this or to submit this? You can just forget about it. Just let us do it, because at the end of the day, this is what I've said of this on plenty of these webinars, but like, I'm sure everyone on this call could figure out how to change their own oil, or they probably already know how to change their own oil, but is it really worth your time? Like, most of our clients pass these fees through to the borrower, as they should, because at the end of the day, the biggest winner here is the borrower. And if we render a loan or a project ineligible, we have a very good reason for it. These guidelines don't come out of thin air for no reason, although it may seem that way. With a lot of things from these agencies, they don't. There's usually a very good reason as to why they are doing this. And let us change the oil. You do what you do best. This is what we do best. Divide and conquer. Send it to us. Let us take this piece off of your plate, and it'll make your life a lot easier. It's also much better in terms of a risk management standpoint. So every loan that we do from you, we'll send you a loan level invoice. We do pass through third-party fees to you, but you can pass these through to the borrower. It doesn't necessarily even have to cost you anything. So I don't know why you wouldn't use this. But here we have some QR codes for additional resources. If you need some light material to fall asleep to, this is just links to fanniemae.com. And then these are the boys. These are your hosts today. I want to thank everybody on this call for taking the time to come and join us. Like I said, I will send everybody a follow-up email that has a link to this video once I get it put into YouTube, and then a copy of the PowerPoint that has those links and sources in there. So thank you all so much for coming today. We love having you for these webinars. I hope you learned something. We are going to continue to do these as we always do. If you do have something you want me to talk about, or you want Dalton to talk about, please let us know and we will make a webinar for that particular topic. Something we found is that if you're wondering it, all of our other clients are probably wondering it too. And there's a lot of that stuff in condo land. So that all being said, that's pretty much all I got for you. Give me a call if we can help you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I hope everybody stays cool. It's awfully hot down here in Nashville, Tennessee. So, hydrate, drink water. But thank you guys again. Dalton, did you have anything else? Should we shut this thing down?
Nope, I'm tapped out. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, folks. Y'all have a great day.